What is the ego actually? In traditional psychology, the ego is a Freudian term used to describe basically the concept of a bridge between what he called the superego, which could be likened to an angel on your shoulder. She is telling you, she's your highest mind. She's telling you and showing you that you are very one with all things. This is a very right-brained concept. It's a very present time kind of, she's the angel being the angel. And we have this pull toward this dynamic in ourselves to witness our oneness and whatnot, and our spirituality, basically. And then the other side of this bridge, which is on the other side of the ego, is the id, which can be likened more to like your more it's fleshy, it's animalistic, it's earthy, it's impulsive. And the ego is the balancing act between the inner animal and the inner angel. And I want to talk to you about what the ego actually is, in terms, if you are somebody who thinks like I do. The ego is specifically, it's much more, it's not the middle ground, is what I want to say, and that traditional psychology suggests. I have researched, I have done my own work, I do work with my clients to come to this, kind of depiction of what I want to share with you about what the ego actually is. So if you took every traumatic experience in your life and put it in a black and white still shot image, you would have a very clear understanding of how your ego created itself. Because every traumatic experience, whether it's being hit just too hard that one time, or whether it's the kids bullying you on the bus, or whatever it is, we've all got them. And every one of them defined us differently because we made a definition of what it meant. And those are the images that stick, right? And those are the things that keep us actually stuck when we feel like, why can't I move forward? And there's this one, kind of vibration that we're very attuned to because we have known it and held on to it for far too long. And those are the vibrations that we need to let go of. And this is why I think doing work with the ego is so important. Because I'm not here to talk to your ego. If I was talking to your ego, if I'm talking to you right now and you're judging me, it's because you're living in the place that I'm going to tell you about. But if I'm talking to you and you're not in judgment of me, it's because you know where I am as far as being on the playground of actually living outside of the ego. And I was definitely somebody before. It's very funny because I was somebody who would not, I hid behind words. I'm a writer. I would hide behind words. And I would be a little bit, resentful of the people who found the confidence to just jump on and be like, hey guys, what's up? And I always wondered if they were coming from ego, if it was just attention seeking or what that was about. And secretly I was like, kind of like curious and pissed off at the same time, because I wanted to feel free enough to do that, I suppose. But the truth is, I was living in this house that I had created for myself out of all of those images of traumatic experiences in my life that told me I had to be something different or better in order to be loved and to feel worthy. So the ego is all of these cards or all of these pictures around you, and they build walls that define who you're supposed to identify as. I am the rebel. I am, whatever it is that your traumatic experiences switched something in you and said, life is like this and I have to become like this in order to face it. That is basically a brick in the walls of the house of your ego. And you're living inside of, when we are in our egos, we are living inside of that house, those traumatic fear-based experiences. The ego is totally created from fear-based experiences about our unworthiness. And the ego is actually fine, I suppose, so as long as you can actually step outside of that house. So people with personality disorders have a very fixed ego. They can totally be changed. I don't adhere to the whole okay, we can't change personality disorders. I don't want to be the one to change them. I love people To a degree, this is true, and to a degree it's not. There's some personality disorders I don't mind working with. But anyway, they can be fixed because the ego can be fixed. It's a malleable thing, okay? So all of the things that you identify with, that you have deemed this is the right way to be and that is the wrong way to be, and I have to be this in order to be loved, so you should be this in order for me, you know, if you're not also doing the things that I have to do in order to be loved, then you're wrong. Then that is, you know, you living inside of this house that you've created for yourself. And ultimately it's like sad, scary, and alone to live inside of the ego, because it's built in walls of traumatic experiences and all of your inner ghosts haunt you there. So what the purpose of self-work is to stay at the viewpoint of, I have stepped outside of that wall, that house that I've created, and I can look at it and I can see that it's there, but really I can just go out and play in my front yard, right? So it's like, okay, well, there's the walls, but it's also safe outside on the other side of those walls. There's actually true safety and true color, which is what I want you to consider. And in those traumatic events in your life, when you can envision a still shot image, if you can turn it into a motion picture where there's actually color and imagery and sensations, and only see the sensations, even if they're like, okay, I was hit and my energy kind of flew to the side. Well, watch it. Like, just see how everything is always there and nothing really hurt you, and everything that you made that situation mean still means nothing, and you made it mean everything, and that one time that hurt you doesn't have to hurt you for the rest of your life. And that is the ghost that haunts us in our ego. So most people are sitting inside of their house of fear, which is their ego, going, when I do this, then I can do that, or, you know, this is how I will know I'm worthy. And it's so important to recognize that all we have to do is step outside of all of the things that we think identify us, and just be open to the possibility that we're not actually any of those things. Like, if you judge the total bitch, just really consider, like, what if you're just actually a total bitch? Or if you judge somebody who is a slut, you know, consider the possibility of, like, what if you repressed in yourself? Or if you judge, whatever it is that you judge, just be open to the possibility that that thing actually exists inside of you, and you won't let yourself acknowledge it. Because the ego is very shadowy, and we will judge and project onto other people the things that we won't let ourselves actually experience for ourselves. So, and that's when we're truly coming from ego. And it's not bad or wrong. It's just like, you know, it's scary to be in your ego. And it is, when you are living in that space, to look out your window is like, oh, like, I don't know. It's very, like, antisocial, very, like, disconnected. It's very, I don't know if I can. There's so many confused I don't knows. And that's all. If you don't know, it's because you're in your ego, and because you're actually in your ego and having a values conflict about what your identity and your ego are supposed to look like. But to step outside of the ego is where healing happens. And that's where, like, natural, innate, like, God force energy healing happens, when we step out of our fear-based cognitions and projections and beliefs about what life is like. So I hope this kind of helps you identify what the ego is, and to soften the ego's edges, really consider taking a few of those, like, most defining traumatic moments and making it into a movie of color and light and energy, and just see how very alive it all is, even though it felt deadening to you at the time. And just recognize that, like, all of the stories that were created about who you had to be based on those are no longer who you have to be. You're allowed to be energy in motion. You don't have to be stuck in those little sequences in time that made you feel like that's who you had to be in order to be loved. You are loved. You are so loved. You are so loved. Please know that. If you just step right outside of that house, it's easy to share. It's easier to see. It's easy to see. And you can look at your ego and go, okay, it's not wrong or bad. It's just like, I don't really want to be in there because it fucking totally sucks. All right. That's all. Bye.